January 1st, 2010. I woke up alone at 6 a.m. that morning and I laid in bed for a good 3 hours. Not only because I was exhausted from running around with my cousins the day before, or jumping on the bouncy castle, or riding my tricycle, but for the first time, I was experiencing what it felt like to be numb. What had I just done? What had I gotten myself into? It must have been that stupid black and red Spider-Man gown that my mother hated so much and that I'd outgrown but still loved so dearly that got me into this fucking mess. My thoughts were interrupted by the sound of voices in the living room, my mother's laughter ever so loud and comforting. The smell of bacon, tea, freshly brewed coffee, porridge, and KFC from the previous night pierced the air. However, I wasn't running to go grab my favorite thigh chicken piece before my damn sister could get to it. This time I was numb. The smell of my favorite comfort food had a different effect on me this time. In fact, it was repulsive, disgusting, nauseating, because the wetter my taste buds got, the stronger the taste of him, the darker my bruises, and his laughter ever so vile ringing in my ears. And the events of December 31st. December 31st. Oh, December 31st. So vivid. And on a day that most would have deemed turning a new leaf, turning a new chapter, starting a new year, my worst nightmare would begin. That morning, as I opened the door to face my family, I learned a new technique. One that I should have known would get me through so many trials and tribulations in my life. A technique I should have known would save me from myself. And it was smiling through the pain. Oh boy, can I not smile through the pain? Can I not? It's become my thing. But at the expense of what? A slow internal death of a 12-year-old boy. 1, 2, 3, fuck. 4, 5, 6, damn, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, his car, my parents' car, my bedroom, his bedroom, the backyard. The church parking lot is where I had enough. It happened over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Someone make it stop. It's still happening. Fuck! I'm tired. I can't take this anymore. But no one came to my rescue. I had to deal with it all by myself. You know, on that day, I became part of a statistic that 40% of queer men experience some form of sexual assault, and that 26% of gay men actually get raped. Numbers that I deem are a lot higher because I never reported my case. How many of us have? And you know, this is statistics based in America, so I try to look up for African statistics, but there's none. But every other gay man that I meet who's African has been sexually assaulted. What does this mean? Make sense, because I don't understand it. And you might be surprised to hear this, but 93% of children that were molested by loved ones. And by loved ones, I mean close family and friends. So now take a moment to just pause and think of all the times you've taken your child, your nephew, your little sister to go sleep over at someone else's house, to go sleep over at the uncle's house, to go sleep over at that cousin's house. That is risky business. You were putting that life in danger. And I'm not saying that everybody is bad, but you never know what people are up to and what nasty, filthy thoughts people are having. And that man knew exactly what he was doing when he would touch my frail, tiny body and take advantage of it every single time. He would master my mind, my body, and he'd manipulate me into not telling everybody or anybody anything. He used my sexuality as a weapon to keep me shut because he knew just how much I was afraid of being abandoned, of how afraid I was of being rejected by my family. And he used that. He sure did use that. He made me feel like an abomination. He made me feel nasty. He made me feel disgusting. He made me hate myself. And as other kids played out in the streets, played hide and seek, and continued to have fun and grow like children, I was wondering, when is the next one happening? When is the next one coming? I even think that this may sound twisted, but I even think that to some extent, I turned on something in my brain to say, I like this. I'm enjoying this. So every encounter that I had with him, I'd have to mentally prepare to say, I'm going to enjoy this. I'm gonna enjoy smelling his musty body all over me. I'm gonna enjoy hearing his voice, hearing his moans and groans touching me and all up in my ear. I don't know. I don't know. Okay. So that was a little piece that I had written because I was auditioning for a TEDx event, and I actually won the position to do the TEDx, but unfortunately due to COVID, the TEDx had to be postponed, I think cancelled. I'm not really sure where they're at. But I only felt like it was right for me to not just keep this piece on my laptop, but to actually bring it to light. This is something that's close and dear to my heart. And it's something that I battled with for so many years to get to this place that I'm at. And a lot of people didn't know, and a lot of people are probably finding out right now that at the age of 12, I was sexually assaulted by a close family member. Now, the message is not for you to come here and have a pity party for me. It's not for us to come here and say, oh, poor Tumelo. It's to just bring light to this issue. I think there's a few things, two main things that I actually would love for parents specifically to take note of. Number one is to keep open dialogue with your kids. A lot of parents, especially in the African community, have this mentality that there should be a hierarchy between parents and children, and that their kids should not talk to them about specific things. And there's certain things that are acceptable to talk to your parents about, and some are not. Rape shouldn't be one of those things. You should create an open dialogue, an environment where your kids can approach you and say, hey, mom, this is happening to me. Hey, mom, I'm trying to, have sex. Give me advice. This should be an actual thing, because a lot of kids are experimenting. A lot of things are having to find things out on their own because they don't have that guidance. And the one person that could be given that guidance doesn't want to have that conversation because it's awkward. When your parents should be your first line of response, the first people that you go to, because they will never mislead you. And they have your best interest at heart. Number two, I would say for parents, be cautious. Be very cautious of who you allow into your children's lives. Be cautious of close family members. It could be uncles, it could be brothers, it could be, uncles, close family friends, because you never know the intentions of people. You never know the intentions of people. So it's so important for you to be protective of your kids, especially at a young age. And sleepovers used to be okay. I feel sleepovers used to be okay when I used to do them. But I have this one friend whose mom would never let her go to any sleepovers. And now I'm understanding why. She was my close friend, but she couldn't even come to my house because I had a brother. And these are things that we really need to be cautious of. It's better to avoid these things from happening than have to deal with them later, because they truly do traumatize kids. My journey to healing was not easy. It took years, and I still think to this point it's something that I'm dealing with, especially when I'm getting into relationships with people. It's something that I still have to work through, because there are certain things that may trigger feelings that may remind me of that moment. I've come up with a few pointers on how I was able to heal and move forward from this incident. The first one would be kind of like in a soul set type of context. And that's work dealing with the soul. The first thing I had to do was forgive myself. Forgive myself for always blaming me and saying this was my fault. Forgive myself for thinking that the way I was dressed and my sexuality could have triggered this to happen to me, and that I deserved it. The second was to forgive my family. I really did feel like my family wasn't there for me when I needed them the most, and they didn't protect me enough, and they didn't check up on me enough to see that, his behavior's changed. They didn't notice that. And then finally was to forgive my rapist, which is the hardest one. And I honestly do not know if I've forgiven this man or if it's just something that I've put in the back burner. And, because I live abroad, it's easier for myself to distance It's easier for me to distance myself from the whole situation. But I can say that it definitely doesn't have as much control over me. Now, the second part is to reclaim your body. I think oftentimes when we go through traumatic experiences, we often lose a part of ourselves. The second part for me was to reclaim my body. I once heard a motivational speaker say that all of us are reclaiming our body from something, whether it's depression, whether it's fatigue. For me, it was years of sexual abuse. And at this point, I needed to start acknowledging and accepting that this was going to be a part of my story. I might have not wanted it to be a part of my story, but that's what it was. And the further I kept running away from it, the deeper it cut. The final point would be acceptance. You know, oftentimes when we go through traumatic experiences, we are in denial. We don't want to accept that it's happened. And that's part of the process. After I got sexually assaulted, I kept blaming my sexuality for the incident. And you know, people would say, oh, why are you gay? It's when people still thought asking that question was right. Why are you gay? And I'd always tell them, you know, I was sexually assaulted as a young kid. And so, you know, I just felt more comfortable around girls. And ever since then, I've become feminine and I like boys. When in actual fact, that wasn't the case. I don't even think the word heterosexual or straight had ever been in my vocab. You know, so once I started to accept myself and my family also accepted me, this gave me freedom and liberty to just live in my own space and really step into my power. And you know, I always tell people this: once you accept yourself and once you love yourself fully and 100% unconditionally, you start to live the best and most fulfilling life. And with that being said, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode. I think after every 4 episodes, the 5th one will be a session like this where I'm speaking into the camera and I'm telling a story, or I'm giving some form of life advice or a lesson. I hope you guys did enjoy this episode, because I know that I did. And you know, every time I say this, I guess I'll call it a spoken word, I feel so liberated. I feel a lot more lighter with every time that I recite it. So I hope that this wasn't too heavy for you guys, and that you guys can continue to take care of your siblings, take care of your young ones, and please create a space for young queer kids to grow up and feel like they can be themselves and they will still be loved despite their sexuality. Yeah, until next week. Mwah.